Team skills for process improvement. Unit 2 of 8. Communication skills. Part 4 of 7. Effective communication guidelines. Achieving effective communication takes a lot of work on the part of both the sender and the receiver. Here are some guidelines that may help you achieve more effective communication. Number 1, seek self-knowledge. In other words, know yourself. How do you perceive the world? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Do you tend to jump to conclusions? Do you need immediate closure on issues that come up? Do you tend to come across the hostile? Do you tend to come across as hostile when you really only mean to come across as enthusiastic? Knowing your tendency helps you compensate for weaknesses and capitalize on strength. Number 2, live a pattern of cooperation. Don't just talk it. Part of this concept involves taking steps to understand and be sensitive to your audience. What are their weaknesses, likes, dislikes? How do they take in information? On what do they base decisions? Understanding your audience helps you to structure your communication to meet their needs. Living a pattern of cooperation also means demonstrating through behavior a sincere concern for others' positions and for working toward common goals. Number 3, listen to others to understand. Many of us wait to speak as opposed to listening. By putting aside our positions and reflecting, we have a better chance of truly understanding the other person's view. Number 4, control the desire to pass judgment. Judging implies that we know the truth. When we start judging, we stop listening fully to what is being said. We need to remain open to others' views. Number 5, question listeners to check for understanding. Ask questions of your audience to find out whether what you say has been heard and understood. Asking for this feedback and rephrasing your message to get your meaning across in a different way may prevent some serious miscommunications. Number 6, protect the other person's ego. In many instances, a great deal of tact is needed to encourage another person to express himself or herself. Evaluate behaviors, not character. Be sensitive to the other person's strengths and weaknesses. Barriers to effective communication. Even in the most ordinary situations, there are barriers to effective communication that must be overcome if a team is to function successfully. Being aware of these barrier raising behaviors may make it easier to deal with them. Number 1, directing. Telling the other person what to do. Obviously, there are occasions when this is necessary, but to create open communication, a participative approach is more effective. Number 2, threatening. Using your authority to coerce another person by telling him or her the negative consequences of failing to yield. This stifles cooperation and creates an impenetrable barrier to communication. Number 3, preaching, telling another what should or ought to be correct behavior. Number 4, Advising without being asked. Telling the other person how to solve his or her problems without being asked. Often, you may be jumping to conclusions without thoroughly exploring the process and may offer solutions without benefit of data collection or analysis. Number 5, lecturing. Trying to influence others with your own opinions stated as facts often often accompanies advising without being asked. Number 6, judging. Making negative judgment of or evaluation of the other person, thereby discounting his or her contribution. For example, she is so headstrong, I just can't deal with her. Number 7, false praising and agreement. Flattery or implied promise of reward. This is a form of manipulation. Number 8, ridiculing. Belittling another person or making him or her feel foolish. Sometimes this takes the form of teasing at the expense of the other person. When someone says, I'm just kidding, it's a tip off that barriers are going to be raised. Number 9, distracting. Trying to get the other person's attention off the problem by such behaviors as kidding away strong feelings or discounting or poohing an idea. In summary, try to keep the golden rule in mind. Treat others as you want to be treated. If someone has strong feelings about the subject being discussed, those feelings need to be addressed in a constructive manner. Then they cannot be ignored if we truly want to communicate effectively. Often, just allowing the person to verbalize feelings will improve team relationships. Responsibility for effective communication is a burden that rests almost equally on the sender and the receiver. Communication should be an interactive process. We send information, receive information, and constantly check whether the intended message was received intact. Sometimes it takes several passes before we can be confident that both sender and receiver are on the same wavelength.